have some voice left. Hopefully, I will retain it by the end of the day. You know, Dr. Natsios, who is now a distinguished professor at the great Texas A&M institution, he made this comment about America's being consistent in support of our Afghan allies and friends, and how important that was in maintaining stability in Afghanistan. Because if your enemies, if your opposition, if those who wish you ill think that it's just a matter of time to depart, for the U.S. and the NATO to depart, they will stick around, and they have. And I think that has been a big policy deficiency in our own administration over the last 7 years, and has kept this war going. I remember once somebody told me that the Taliban say that, you know, you have the watches, but we have the time. And boy, has that been the case. Anyway, while I still have some voice left, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Aziz Azimi. Aziz? Okay. Many of you know Aziz Azimi and Technologists, Inc. Aziz founded TI in 1999 and had built up some 25 years experience in federal contracting, went to Afghanistan because of the AACC relationship. We wanted Aziz to be the prime contractor in developing the new Chamber of Commerce, the precursor of ACCI back in 2003, 2004. Well, he sat down with the AID people at that time. With his background and experience in federal contracting, he was a natural to get in to the construction industry. And TI has built, I believe, many hundreds of millions of dollars worth of projects for Afghanistan, for U.S. Contractors, USAID, Army Corps of Engineers. And he has a very special presentation today. And I believe part of it is in your booklets. I think this is a unique way of looking at building the Afghan economy and building employment. And given Aziz's experience, I think it makes a lot of sense to listen up. Okay, thank you, and Aziz, please take over.
Thank you, Don, for a gracious introduction. My voice is not as good as yours, but it's there. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for listening. In this presentation, I would like to share with you a critical review of the U.S. policy for reconstruction of Afghanistan the last 13 years. During this presentation, I would like to highlight this policy's successes, failures, reasons for failures, and path forward. But before I start with my presentation, there are 3 points to be made. Number one, I have never held a official office in any administration during this time. Second, I'm an Afghan-American. As an Afghan, my heart bleeds for the opportunities lost. As an American, I dread for my tax dollars and for the nation's wealth wasted. And third, I strongly adhere to the philosophy of a genius general during World War II, General Patton, who said, "I don't pay for the same real estate twice." So now let us begin with my presentation. With your help, if you have any question, I'll be glad to answer during the presentation. Can I have the next slide, please? The U.S. investment in Afghanistan is incredible. When I looked up SIGAR's report of October, this past October, which is probably the latest, it shows about almost about $110 billion of development aid, and almost about $1 trillion worth of expenses. As you can see, these funds were used for many reasons, for many places, in many places. At the third point, the Afghan campaign has been the longest in the history of US. Has been going on for like 13 years. It has cost us, the US, about over 2,000 lives and about 20,000 wounded. And another thing is the yearly interest, because this was not, remember this is the whole idea. This was not a one-time expense. We did not have the money in this country, so we had to borrow the money from outside. This $1 trillion has been added to national debt. If we pay 5% interest a year, that's a $50 billion of expense, ongoing expense, for many years to come. Okay, so the cost of Afghan war or Afghan effort, reconstruction effort, by this country will go on for many years. So that is something should not be lost with the policymaker in Afghanistan as well as in the US. May I have the next slide, please? Okay, there were many good successes. Mr. Ritter alluded to the first point there. The creation of modern governmental institutions. He is right. There are no other countries in that neighborhood who has such an institution. By the way, this is literally a copy of US system that we brought into Afghanistan. And by the way, anybody says anything, this country has been running the world for the last 200 years. So the system must be right. The structure must be right. And this structure makes this country the oldest of all the governing system in the world. Everybody else has changed their system, except for the US. So we have a very strong fundamentals for the governance in Afghanistan. We have been able to introduce modern technologies. Those of us who were in Afghanistan in 2002, we still remember there were no telephones. There were no banking system. There were no internet. On and on and on. Okay? There are substantial progress in infrastructure. There are roads. Okay, now they are actually trains. You're looking at the number of airports all over Afghanistan, airlines. And not to forget, a complete buildup of security apparatus. I'm talking about here, army, police, and everything else. These things did not exist in 2002. If we are talking about 350,000 security strong, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work has gone through to get that one done. May I have the next one, please? Now let's take a look at the failures. Where did this policy failed? It's in the economy. Okay. Yesterday, I don't know, it was the ambassador who said, or someone else who said that with the NATO and Americans gone, we lost 100,000 jobs, and at the same time, he said, I think it was him, he said that the new government inherited a very bad economy. So something has happened. Actually, this policy failed to resurrect or create another economy which was not dependent on donors' money or anything else. The second thing that has happened, it was actually people's participation. There were many people like yourself, like me, who have participated in this policy. However, this policy did not go all the way down. There was a gentleman here, I don't know if it was the director, the ex-director, who said something about the research, that what is happening, what happens to the world, those countries that they fail, and the system that they fail. It's actually people's participation is a major factor. The more people are allowed to participate, the less the corruption and more of everything that is beneficial to the society. Another point is basically continuity and consistency. And that's what actually was raised by the previous panel. And I think somebody raised the question that what should be done when the next administration shows up, what they should be doing. They were actually referring to continuity and consistency. If you are not continuous, you don't do anything in continuous form, and you're not consistent in your messages and in what you do, it's a failure. The last point in here, what I have is what I call misplaced philosophy. Misplaced philosophy. Everybody in this room talked to us in the past, don't give them fish. There is an adage in English that don't give them fish, teach them how to fish. This is true only and only if there is a fish. If you are living in Afghanistan, there are no water to fish. If you are actually doing capacity for plumbers, and there is no place to actually hire plumbers. So it's actually you're teaching fish in Sahara Desert, in the Great Sahara Desert. That's actually what exactly happened. We forgot that there was no fish in Afghanistan, so we were teaching them fish. Okay, may I have the second slide, please? Additional, lack of capacity. Now I'm becoming a little bit specific because that's what Don told me, be more specific. Lack of capacity of the so-called experts. I'm talking about expats, however you want to say it, or the experts in Afghanistan. Recently, they raised MOF, Ministry of Finance, raised BRT by 100%. Since when, show me a single country that raises tax by 100% and prospers? You know, the biggest argument in this country between Republican and Democrats is on over taxes. There is no difference, or there are a little bit more, but taxes is the main driver. So I'm questioning here, where was USAID, where was IMF to tell MOF, look guys, this is not correct. All right, business people, you got to give me an accolade on this particular point. Waste vis-a-vis corruption. You know, we talked a lot about corruption in the past, yesterday and today, but nobody raises the point waste. I think waste is a lot more sinister. no name taken. There were over $220 million now spent on a road in Afghanistan, and they did not have a single square meters of asphalt. Okay? Now, don't tell me there was a corruption of $220 million in Afghanistan by one person or one company, but this is true. Focus or lack thereof. Here, it's very interesting. I put that purposely because that the CNG is near dear to my heart. That's why I went to Afghanistan. There were a lot of things came out and was actually in the paper and everything. It's $43 million gas station that was worth $500,000. Actually, Cigar made a mistake. They should actually go back and tell these guys, continue doing it, because that's road to the redemption for Afghans, because the only thing Afghans have energy-wise is, guess what? Is natural gas. It's the cleanest form of fossil fuel. And guess what else? Afghans are incredibly good in transportation. The only thing that is holding, we are importing tons and tons of LPGs, which is liquid petroleum gas, okay? But we have CNGs of our own. We have natural gas of our own. You need a compressor. And yes, USAID spent $43 million. So that's why there was no focus. They thought it was over. No, it was the beginning. Okay? And by the way, for anybody who's from the north, anybody who's in transportation, this is where you go. I'm too old for it. For anybody who's young, and I see a wonderful young people running around here, this is the road to redemption for Afghanistan. You can be in utility, you can be in heating system, you can be anything in Afghanistan. That does it. The perception of needs. It's a perceived, somebody perceived this is what you need, but you actually need something else, the actuality, what is needed. There are projects that has been designed. There's a $300 million power plant. You know it around Kabul? It's a little bit more than $300 million. This project must go in the Guinness World Book of Records as the most expensive, the most useless project. Because there was a perception of need, but the actuality was different. Justice. You know, we just talked yesterday about the Kabul Bank. I honestly don't know anybody in Kabul Bank. Just one Kabul Bank? Okay. The problem with that is, what about the $340 million power plant? What about the $220 million road? Do you see what I'm talking about? When we talk about justice, which Mr. Denasio, right? He mentioned about rule of law. You know, rule of law goes two ways, you know. It's not a one-way street, okay? But anyways, may I have the next one? How much time do I have? I'm close. 5 minutes, give me 10, okay. Okay. What's next? To continue or not to continue, this is the question of the day. Do we want to continue on this path, which is the policy that we are pursuing so far in the last 13 years, or we want to make a change in this policy? May I have the next slide, please? If we don't do it, we don't change, this is what I think happens. Increased migration. Do you know that of what they say from 800,000 people who are going to Europe, between 120 to 150 of those 1,000 people are from Afghanistan? Okay, that is a consequence of continuity and consistency that didn't happen. Increased volatility, both internally as well as regionally and worldwide. If Taliban or ISIS takes over, you know, China, what's the name, all those stans up north, none of these people will be living quietly and comfortably. It will not stick in Afghanistan. The third one is basically loss of much and a lot of investment. I'm not talking about money alone. I'm talking about the most important one of all, lives and time. Time wasted. Time wasted. There is nothing more precious than time. And we have been wasting time. The next one, please. Here's a smarter way. Path forward. At least that's what I think. The always no longer work. We have to accept that the always, or at it dead, it's over. Its time has passed. So we have to come up with a different ways. We got to be efficient, we got to be effective with people. We have to touch more people's lives. And we have to be efficient with our resources. Whether it's $1 or $1 billion, we have to be a lot more efficient. Remember, a lot of people, everybody talked about Taliban today, or yesterday, okay? I don't see Taliban a problem, okay? It's an issue. It's like corruption. It's an issue. If you ask any of these businessmen, say, okay, I want to get my job done and I want to move forward. The issue, the biggest problem that is actually threatening Afghanistan is unemployment. We have over 60% unemployment and growing. I have yet to see anybody, very young people, say, how many kids they have? They tell me 6, 7, 8. And those kids are going to be growing in the next 10 years. And they want jobs, they want something. And that's very difficult. So the key to a successful development of Afghanistan, it is literally on job creation. We must create jobs. Okay, next, please. Then the programs must be, you can read that yourself. But the one that I highlighted is very important. Somebody asked, a gentleman here said, what should the new government should be doing? They should have a social contract. They should provide those things to the citizen, and citizen will be obedience to the laws of the country. Okay, building the economy, resources, people, high-value products, CNG, there's a whole array of things. A lot of people, they don't understand that how many people they brought in factories and how many of those factories failed. The reason they failed, because we cannot compete with the Iranians, the Pakistanis, the Indians, with Chinese. That's the truth, okay? We continue with introduction. The only thing that gets us away is the introduction of new technologies. We have to leapfrog, go somewhere else, provide different ideas. We cannot follow the same old thing. Can I have the next element, please? Next, okay. Here's something I wrote about in the early part of the year, and I called it 20 initiatives. Okay. And I promise you that if you sit with the people in this room, they will have 100 of these. These are initiatives that are actually geared towards employment. By the way, the first one was picked by President Ashraf Ghani as the national initiative to be implemented. So these are some of what you see. I mean, I don't have to read them for you, but they actually produce work. And by the way, every one of these things are employment driven, and every one of them is what we call public-private partnership projects. And every one of them has little or no competition from abroad. So that's what makes it's an in-house thing. Can I see the last one, please? And I'm done. Okay. This is actually, I did a quick estimate of this. It's actually supposed to produce 1 million jobs. We produce 1 million jobs in Afghanistan, it would be quite different. It would be quite different world. All those incomplete, unfinished buildings that you see in Kabul, they will be filled. But we got to give people jobs. So that's my spiel. Thank you very much.